You ever leave a date replaying every word that you said? Yeah, same. You're analyzing. What did they think of that? How did that go? Should I have said something different? Is that okay that I said that? Or what did that mean? Or you're all in your head. You're overthinking it. I'm Donna Barnes. Welcome to my Broken to Brave podcast. Overthinking and then over explaining, I think, are really big turnoffs to somebody that you're really trying to connect with. Over explaining, first off. I can't even tell you how many times I'm talking to a coaching client who's trying to compose a text or something thereabouts, and they want to run it by me, and they're over explaining. You don't need to explain yourself. And honestly, I think it comes back to not feeling heard. If you over explain or you overthink, it's largely because you weren't really heard. Perhaps as a child, you feel like you're misunderstood. Oversharing, over explaining, and overthinking, I think, are three big red flags to somebody that you're trying to communicate with. Stay with me. Let's unpack this a little bit and let's get to the bottom of how you can stop oversharing, over explaining, and overthinking. The overthinking part is what starts all the over explaining, because if you're in your head thinking this and that and thinking this and all those things that you've got running, and I'd like to say the mental highlight reel, right? When you're trying to get over a breakup, that's your worst enemy. You're running that highlight reel of all the great things that you did together. It's keeping you locked in pain in that place. But I think that's true across the board. I know I'm guilty of this. When I have a meeting, I mean, geez, years ago as an actor, you prepared so hard for an audition. And then on my way home, especially when I lived in Los Angeles, I used to think, wow, I was on autopilot. You'd like to think that you'd react if something happened in front of you. But I was so far lost in my head, rerunning what had just happened at the audition so that I could make a decision about how I thought it went, right? And I think the exact same thing happens on dates. You leave a date and you're so retreated into your thoughts, evaluating how you think it went, that you're actually missing out on other stuff. And actually, that's how you can really break your own heart, because your thoughts create your feelings. They really do. And, the whole whether you think you can and you think you can't, you're right, is so true, because your thoughts are just so powerful. So if you're now overthinking, it's like, it's not a good thing. It's not like you have so much power now. It's that you're diminishing your power because you're not present. You're not living in the moment. You're not available and taking in the things that are going on around you. You're really probably throwing too much at the person that you're crazy about, or that at least you're interested in and that you're trying to impress. Overthinking is really not helpful, really, in any way. I mean, we can overthink our way in and out of relationships. We can think our way in and out of jobs, right? Overthinking is too much, right? That's why it's called overthinking. And it largely comes from, I think everybody has abandonment issues on some level, right? And, I've been very open about the fact that when I was a kid, my mother constantly threatened to leave. And then she died suddenly when I was 18, right? So it's like, talk about abandonment issues. And I overthink. I do. I don't really over explain, largely because I've worked on that. Less is more when it really comes to what you're trying to say to somebody, right? You don't need to lay out your whole life story if you're not going to see somebody again. I've said that a lot, right? Here's the thing with communication. It's supposed to be two-sided. And if you're talking, you're not listening, right? And if you're in your head thinking, you're also not listening. And listening is such a gift to somebody that you're trying to get to know, really. I mean, feeling heard, right, is such a big gift if we're trying to get someone to care about us. And when someone does really listen to us, it feels great. So you want to make sure that you're not overthinking so that you're not really listening, because honestly, that's how you really connect with somebody. I mean, the really unfortunate thing for overthinkers is you can be in the moment and really feel like you're really connecting with this person, where they feel very ungrounded and very unconnected to you, because you're mostly connecting with your own thoughts. Overthinking is really standing in your way if you're an overthinker because it's just keeping you alone. It's keeping you in your thoughts. Fantasy is not your friend when you first start a relationship, right? Your imagination can really throw off the balance of something. And that's really the basis of overthinking. It starts with that fantasy that you've got playing in your head about where the relationship's going and how you're really connected and what you're going to do. I mean, all of that throws off the balance of what's reality. That starts to become really odd, really, to the person you're trying to connect with. So there's a whole host of reasons why you really need to keep present. The power of now, I think, is exceptionally helpful in trying to connect with somebody and really staying in today and in the moment. And especially if you're struggling to get over somebody or trying to get past something that has really hurt you, overthinking it is keeping you in pain. You're reliving it every time you think about it. I know easier said than done, but when you stop thinking about something, it doesn't hurt anymore. We overthink really because we fear rejection and we fear being abandoned. We overthink it because we feel like we need to get ahead of it and we need to control it and we need to figure out, is this good? Is this not good? Is this like, how did this go? Like, it's all just too much. If you're an overthinker or an overexplainer, give yourself a little exercise to practice pausing, right? Hit the pause button and listen. You're not learning anything while you're talking or retreated in your head. So if you really actively listen, just tell yourself, look, I've been guilty of this. Years ago, I was in a relationship with a guy that I was crazy about, and he was great at wanting to sit down and have conversations with us. But as soon as we start talking, I'd so be retreating in my head, overthinking what he was saying and trying to figure it out that now I was missing the next thing that he was saying. And what it was saying to him was that I wasn't fully engaged in the conversation. And I think that's really common. If you're an overthinker, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're going, yeah, yeah, right? Because that's what we do. We say something and then we're in our head evaluating it. Or someone who's really important to us, most specifically, says something. They don't even get to the end of the sentence and we're already evaluating it in our head and we're overthinking it. You really need to tell yourself, push the pause button. I'm going to stay present and I'm going to really hear what my partner is saying to me. Because unfortunately, overthinking causes us to miscommunicate. And the really sad thing is we're overthinking because we want to communicate, but it's it's causing us to stop listening. We're listening to ourselves. We're in our own head listening to ourselves instead of being present in the conversation with with your partner, listening to your partner. I think you'll find you're much happier. I mean, let's face it, it's anxiety driven. We overthink because we have anxiety, and big, long, deep breaths calm anxiety, right? It's a cognitive behavioral tool that it literally is impossible to feel anxiety while you're deep breathing. So if you catch yourself over ruminating and overthinking and running all that mental highlight reel, big, long, deep breaths will calm that. Even if while you're overthinking, if you can remember to tell yourself, wait, stop. I need to be present. I need to listen. And it's really hard. But if you can get into a habit, look, we're all creatures of habit. So if you have the habit of overthinking, it's going to take you a little bit to let that habit go. But the key steps are really hit that pause button and spend some quiet time, right? Like I have to admit, I am not a meditator, but I'm a runner, right? While I'm out running is kind of my meditation because it's when I get my thinking done, much in solitude, right? It's just me and out. And I, I highly recommend it if you're not a runner, finding some other avenue of quieting your thoughts and working out your thoughts. And I'm a big fan of journaling, actually. If you're an overthinker, writing your thoughts down with pen on paper is an excellent way to release it. There really is something magical about it. It's like if you're over ruminating on something, by writing it down on paper, it's like your brain knows, oh, okay, I've saved that. I can go look at that if I need to. I can let it go. And it really does work that way. I don't journal all the time, but absolutely, if I'm struggling with something or I'm frustrating with something, more than talking to somebody, journaling it is exceptionally helpful. I mean, talking to somebody who's a counselor or for coaching, I'm available for coaching. I'm really good at listening and identifying specific insights about what's going on and where you might need help. So I would love to coach you. The link is in the description if you're interested in coaching. And while I'm at it, like my video or leave me some comments. Leave me a comment and let me know. Do you overthink? How do you feel about it? What is your coping mechanism? And do you even have a coping mechanism? And do you over explain? Over explaining, I think, is so common. And less is more. And I have one word for you: succinct. Succinct is a much better word than over explain. If you tell yourself, if you're an over explainer where you feel like you have to lay out the whole reason for why you did it, and that's where it comes from, right? In coaching people, people always want to lay out every thought that they had and exactly why they're doing something and how come this happened. And no, succinct. Ask yourself, what is it that I'm trying to communicate here? What is the takeaway? And usually it's just something basic. Like if someone's asking for something, this is a big example that just happened the other day. A client was talking to me about somebody had emailed them asking them for something and they didn't know how to respond about, they weren't ready to respond yet. I recommended that they respond and say, yes, I'm working on that. I'm hoping to have that later today. End of story. You don't need to say why you don't have it yet. You don't need to say why you're not ready to have it. You don't need to explain anything at all. All you need to convey is that, yes, I'm going to do that. And this is when it'll be. Succinct is the key to over explaining. Because first of all, no one wants to be on the side of that. I have to tell you, as a coach, I know people have anxiety. I'll be out somewhere at dinner or with friends and I get a text from a client and I think I'll read it real fast. And then it's one of those where you have to open it up and then it's like a book, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, no, I'm not going to read that right now. And then that's kind of my point. But if they send a text that has like a 2-liner that's succinct overview of like, hey, are you available tomorrow? I'll reply to that in real time, right? And I think that's true for most people. If you write a book oversharing, over explaining, that's a lot to take in and that's a lot to read. And if you're in the middle of something else or you're just busy, it doesn't always get read. But if it's short and succinct, you might get a reply right away because that's just easy, right? A 1 or 2-liner is super easy to read and respond to. So if you're not really getting replies to your texts or emails, they're probably over explaining. Succinct. Tell yourself succinct is the word that you need to align your replies with. You really don't need to over explain. Less is more. People don't need to know the whole reason of why something's not going to happen or the background of how something, no. All they need to know is that it's going to happen or that it did happen or, whatever it is that you're trying to convey. Succinct is more likely to get a response to oversharing. Is never nice to be on the receiving end, quite frankly. Now, if you're sitting down and having a conversation with somebody, I think the same thing applies. When I was growing up, the girls across the street, right? The one girl liked to tell big, long, drawn out stories. And her older sister used to go, come on, get to the point, right? Like, right. And like, if I'm completely honest, I thought the exact same thing, but I thought it was rude to say, right? But siblings have that kind of thing, right? But that's exactly my point. In relaying a story, less is more and succinct. Look, I'm a talker. I'm a Gemini, right? We're communicators. It's partly what makes me, I think, good at making videos. But in editing, frequently I cut stuff out because I can recognize in myself. I start with one thought and then another thought interjects and I go off on that. And then I have to come back to the original thought. And in editing, I can take that out. But in life, I've had to learn to try to edit myself. Not every thought that we have is interesting to the person who's listening, especially if it's somebody that we're really trying to connect with. Self-edit yourself, I think, is very helpful. Not everybody does that. Not to the point that you're being evasive or that you're really not communicating effectively, but over explaining yourself is not endearing. It's just not. So the takeaway really is, what is the keys of what you're trying to communicate? How do I then succinctly communicate this so that it's going to be received well. And then I think you'll get better responses and quicker responses. What it all comes down to is just we all just want to be loved. We all just want to connect with somebody who just has our back and gets us and loves us and wants to be in our lives. And unfortunately, that desire is subconsciously being sabotaged by our need to overthink and over explain. And if we can really practice listening and taking a break and being silent, quieting those thoughts, because they really can. I mean, even just in breaking your own heart, when you're in the arms of somebody that you're just getting to know and it just feels amazing, if you're overthinking while you're laying there, that's where it can really cause the other person to throw away, right? You need to really stay out of your head and stay present with your partner. That's how, first of all, you'll effectively communicate. And honestly, when you're in your head, you're not connecting with your partner. You're connecting with yourself. You're completely self absorbed, really, which is not helping you connect with your partner. So if you really want to be loved, you need to really stop overthinking and over explaining and be open and present and listen and really hear what your partner is trying to say to you, because that is really very endearing if you're a good listener. So yeah, thanks for watching. Leave me your comments and like my video and subscribe if you haven't. And yeah, leave me some comments. Are you an over explainer? Are you an overthinker? I'd love to hear what you have to say.